While I wouldn't describe myself as a pro wrestling fan these days, like any kid growing up in the 1990s, I have fond memories of watching the Attitude Era unfold. I was a huge fan of the Hardy Boys. I always wondered, though, why did so many wrestlers during that era come to the ring with wet hair? It seemed at the time like almost every long-haired wrestler did it. X-Pac and Kane spring to mind as the leading examples. What was the genesis of the wet hair look? Was there a reason for it, or did it just look cool? Am I right in thinking it began during the Attitude Era, or does Jim remember wrestlers doing it earlier than that? What are Jim's thoughts on this practice? Thank you for taking the time to read my email and keep up the good work. As a fellow angry malcontent, Mr. Cornette is an inspiration to me.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm not saying that, like, sometimes some of the wild man, gimmicks, I don't know if Pampiro Firpo may have ever gone to the ring with some wet hair, although he liked to be bushy and shaggy, and that was part of his look. Oh, my God. But maybe Bruiser Brody may have done it or whatever, but a lot of the, I think it was the 90s. And, of course, Bret Hart used to do it. Maybe he saw somebody in Calgary do it. I think it fed on itself. I mean, a lot of the guys, especially back in the 80s in the WWF, and then it became that way in WCW after it was bought by Turner Broadcasting, the guys kept fake sweat. They kept a spray bottle of water around because instead of the guys would oil themselves up when they were going to the ring, because that way if they had a tan and they had the big bodies and basically the WWF – or Flair or somebody who fit that that description. They'd had a tan. They looked all shiny under the lights. Is the famous story where Tony Atlas, when he first got into business, he's in Roanoke, his hometown, and they said, "Hey, kid, Mr. Crockett's here. The boss, you better shine tonight." And so they look back over there, and Tony's pouring a whole bottle of baby oil over himself. But that's what they did in the 80s when bodies became – nobody oiled himself up in the 70s, but maybe superstar Billy Graham or whatever, because you didn't really need to look that good then because that wasn't the idea. And as far as bodybuilders, not tough guys. And then in the 80s it started in the WWF because they were placing such an emphasis on guys with bodies. But you didn't want to oil yourself up because it made it harder to get a hold of people. And that's – that's baby oil on a good looking muscle guy has contributed to more fucking heels cussing that same baby face than anything else in the world because you can't get good grips and it's dangerous. And then for a while in the 90s, I remember they started wearing, and I'm not wearing, but applying. It's like an icy hot type of thing, but it made your. It made your it's a bodybuilding kind of look thing where it made your skin turn bright and accented your, what do they call it, the vascularity or whatever the fuck. But it stunk like goddamn like liniment, like icy hot or whatever. And some people were allergic to it. And Road Dogg was real bad allergic to it and would break out. And that's why they had to put up notes banning. Do not put this shit on yourself that stinks like horse liniment and annoys everybody else because it'll fucking make your body somehow look better. And so that went away after a while. But at the same time, they started wetting the hair. And I don't know, maybe it's just there's more long-haired guys, although, Bobby Eaton, Dennis Condrey, Stan Lane, long-haired, bleach blonde heel teams in general didn't wet their hair. So I don't know if it has anything to do with the length or just maybe the style or the fashion. Was somebody else doing that in the popular music at the time? Was that the look?
I remember long hair, big hair. I don't remember wet hair.
I mean, I don't, and some of the guys like, when everybody started doing it, and occasionally I'd walk to the ring over the last 15 years or whatever with whoever on various shows, they'd wet their hair and fucking sling their fucking head back and drench me in my suit jacket. I'm like, hey, what the fuck? It's just, I just never liked that. I don't think that you should wet yourself or grease yourself when you're going in, and your balance and your grip depends on everybody's safety or vice versa. You know what I'm saying?
When it comes to Bret, though, doesn't Bret have like really wavy hair where if he didn't wet it, it just wouldn't look good?
Well, I mean, and also that's Bret Hart. He's one of the biggest stars in the world. Maybe that's why a lot of people started doing it because it as Rodney used to say, look good on you. Not Rodney Estee, but the other one. And so then everybody's copying everything else that he does. I don't know, but it got to be a lot. A few here and there, once again, it looks good on you, but just everybody doing it. I'm just, what the fuck? I always tried to make mine as fluffy as possible, especially when I started losing some of it.
I'm trying to remember, did the Midnight Express ever work with anyone that was known for oiling themselves up? I don't really remember that. How would that work?
Oh, well, it actually, I don't know whether Brian Pillman did it. He didn't do it excessively. Tom Zink, I remember, was a body guy. But I mean, at the same time, it wasn't like just horribly excessive with those guys. Some people knew to not just slather themselves, but sometimes it was ridiculous. But yeah, that didn't come in. And Crockett, nobody, once again, except for Luger, that was his gimmick, and Flair looked great. And I'm trying to think of, I don't know anybody that would have needed to oil themselves down to, get over.